Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES. That is, at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is politics done right.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Willies, your host. Thank you so kindly for having the patience for coming in. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the show. We are going to have a great show for you today. Today, we are going to be talking about Big Pharma. We're going to be talking about healthcare. We're going to be talking about all these things that are really going wrong. I saw a program last night on 60 Minutes, and I can't tell you, first of all, I was happy that they covered the extortion by these folks, by the Big Pharma. I was extremely happy about that. However, I was extremely disappointed in the level with which the coverage occurred. I think it could have been that much better, but it wasn't. And why wasn't it? Well, it's the same reason that I've told you all of the times. It's the same thing. Big Pharma, Big Pharma, Big Pharma, and what they do, what they control, how they have everything under their control, and not only under their control, even the media doesn't have the wherewithal to really fight the system, to really go ahead and support what needs to be supported. If you're just joining us, folks, please remember to go ahead and share this program. Good afternoon, Marian Castiglia, Senor Ratnan, welcome aboard as well. And anybody that scrolled off the screen that I hadn't mentioned, welcome aboard to the show. We're going to have a great show today. We're also simultaneously trying to hit our Instagram account, doing some Instagram live here as well. I hadn't done a show on Instagram live yet, so we are doing that to see how it works, what kind of extra folks we get on from there as well. But folks, it is bad. It is bad. What occurs, I mean, people are in pain. Our friends in Appalachia, more than just about anyone, are suffering suffering from the issues of the opioid crisis. And what do our good folks do about that? What do good people do, or supposedly people that are supposed to be good, what do they do about the good old opioid crisis? They take advantage of those the people that they should least be taking advantage of. Folks, if you're just joining the show, if you're on Facebook, please share this on your Facebook page. If you're on Instagram, please share this on your Instagram with your Instagram friends. If you are on wherever, if you're on Tumblr, Snapchat, anywhere, please share this stuff. This is how we're going to get real information out to the masses, because you know what? It is hard. What makes it hard? The mainstream media tries to do everything. Well, it's not the mainstream media. Let's give them a break. The mainstream media is doing the best that they can, the good folks in the mainstream media, but they are paid for by whom? The plutocracy. I mean, who advertises the drugs? Who advertises the colognes? Who advertise all these other things? They can't get these folks upset. So if a cologne has some sort of a bad product in it, they can't quite come out and say, don't use that. If a drug doesn't really work right, they can't come out and just say, don't use that drug. They can't do that. Why can't they do that? They cannot do that because, again, that's where their bread is buttered. In our case, our support comes directly from you. So we only owe to you, because that is our goal. Independent media is to come out here and tell you the way things are. I've been very upset. They've been giving our good friend, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, some trouble, right? They've been giving her trouble about the clothes that she wears. They've been giving her trouble about, the right wing has used her as the poster woman. And I think one of the things that we're going to have to do in the progressive base is really come to the support of those people who put their necks on the line, right? I mean, she's 27, probably 29 or so. And, they listen to every single word that this woman says. And every single word that she says is parsed. Every single misstatement, or, she made a statement and said the three chambers of Congress, really meaning the two chambers of Congress and the presidency. And she called the presidency a chamber, and that they wanted to give her a hard time because it's really the three branches of government. So in reality, she wasn't wrong. They wanted to give the three branches of government, of course, is the judiciary, the legislative, and the executive, meaning the president, the Congress and Senate as one, and as well the Supreme Court. Well, she knows that. But I mean, she didn't quite say that. So what did the folks do? They decided that they wanted to make videos and Instagrams and all of that to kind of make it look like this woman who is a true progressive, not only a true progressive, but folks, somebody who's speaking sense, a young woman, the person that we most need to have talking for us right now, young people, because I mean, we're leaving them this world. And it's just great to see them involved. And what these people are trying to do is break their spirits. They want to break their spirits to prevent them from coming in. Who do you think you are that you're going to come into the political sphere? After all, this is the sphere of us old folk. No, no, no. Thank you, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, por venir, por ser uno de los que están tratando de hacer la vida mejor para todos. Thank you very much, Miss Ocasio-Cortez, because you know what? We do need young people involved, and your presence will, in fact, bring a whole lot of young people to the fold. So thank you very much. Now, also we have a whole lot of women that have come into the fold. That is so great. Now we need a ton more, because I tell you what, I honestly believe if we got a majority of women in the Senate and a majority of women in the Congress and a woman president at this point in our history, so much more would get done. Because this macho testosterone thing with a whole lot of these macho men running the country, I think is a problem. If you can't control your macho, if you can't control your testosterone, you shouldn't be governing. Because at that point you become a clear and present danger, just like we have a president who is in fact a clear and present danger to us all. So folks, please make sure, if you're just joining us, please share this on your Facebook page. Please share this on your Facebook wall. Please make sure that we get maximal, and I repeat, that we get maximal performance out of these particular shows, because we're going to talk about issues that you're not going to necessarily talk about in detail on the mainstream media, and it is essential. It is imperative that we get this out. I mean, it is not even, how should I say this? It's not even up for debate whether we have to be successful, whether independent media has to be successful. We simply must be successful. Okay, before I get into the show, let me just go ahead and get this other phone here to the Facebook page as well, because what I want to do, I'm going to try to do something different today, because I've been leaving my wonderful Facebook folk sometimes stranded, doing some over talking and not get into them in time. So I'm going to try to go ahead and get it covered. But Michael Rudden, welcome aboard. Marianne Castiglia, welcome aboard. And I'm not sure who else is on right now. But anyhow, folks, this is important. Title of the show today: Big Pharma Extortion, another component of our legally fraudulent healthcare system. And I tell you what, notice I said legally fraudulent healthcare system, because these folks are not doing anything illegal. They're not doing anything illegal. However, what they're doing is immoral, if not worse. So that is what we're going to talk about today. The subtitle of the show today is, even after passage of the Affordable Care Act. Even after passage of the Affordable Care Act, the healthcare extortion continues. Why? Why does it continue? Because their big pharma and other lobbyists forced our politicians to put in the necessary loopholes to allow it. You know, I mean, these guys wrote the Affordable Care Act. The Affordable Care Act, don't get me wrong, okay? The Affordable Care Act was important. The Affordable Care Act saved a lot of lives. In fact, I can state categorically it probably saved mine. Because when the Affordable Care Act came into play, I personally went and got a physical that found a few things that had to be taken care of. And it was important. Folks, if you're just joining us, please remember to share this program. It is imperative that we make sure that these truths are put out there. We don't want to really be too hard on the media, but the mainstream media. But the mainstream media cannot go into a lot of details that we are going to go into. And why can't they do that? Because the same people that advertise on the mainstream media, you can't really talk too badly about them. And the classic example is what occurred last night on 60 Minutes. 60 Minutes had the perfect segue into going into why our healthcare system is as bad as it is. They had the perfect segue last night on 60 Minutes, and they let it go. We're going to talk about that. That is actually the blog of the week. Welcome aboard, Rene Perpatua. Welcome aboard. So that is what we're going to talk about. Anyhow, that subtitle, even after passage of the Affordable Care Act, the healthcare extortion continues. Why? Because their big pharma and other lobbyists forced our politicians to put in the necessary loopholes to allow it. Okay, it is clear that we are getting to a flex point in our healthcare. We cannot have healthcare costs go up faster than inflation and wages indefinitely. That is simply not sustainable. When stories like the one about Kaleo extorting a high price for repackaging the opioid emergency drug naloxone, rebranded as Evzio, breaks, it illustrates how the healthcare industrial complex continues to pilfer middle-class America. 60 Minutes had a chance. 60 Minutes had a chance to really use this story to make a bigger point. But they stopped short and instead gave the CEO of the extorter the opportunity to seem magnanimous. And when you do that, welcome aboard, Jay Raymond. Welcome aboard. Look, folks, it is so important that we understand. First of all, we don't need to hold grudges against the mainstream media. At first, I did. But these guys have to survive. And the way they survive is they have to take it to a point like 60 Minutes did, but they couldn't go overboard. They had to leave the rest to us, the independent media, to further the story, if you will, in the context of today's reality. And that's what we're here for. Folks, please do remember that this is a call-in show. You can reach us at 646-716-5812. Again, that number is 646-716-5812. You can reach us at that number. Call into the show if you have anything to add. I'll love to hear from any one of you. It is important. This is a very important subject. But folks, do you know what time it is?
It's time for the weekly blog post.
Okay. The weekly blog post today. The weekly blog post today is titled Pharma Extortion. Opioid drug price rise from $500 to $4,000. That is just that is just the kind of primo to get you into this show for today. That is just the prime, right? But the reality is this is so evil. Folks, if you're just getting with us, please remember to go ahead and share this program. Please share this with on your wall, everywhere that you have access to. It's so very important. Okay, 60 Minutes brought yet again attention to the failure of our healthcare system using a drug used to combat the opioid epidemics as a catalyst for the peace. For that, we should commend them. We should commend 60 Minutes for even bringing up the subject. That was an important subject to bring up. But, unfortunately, it was the standard mainstream media coverage that gave the pharma company a pass by omission. And what do I mean by a pass by omission? In other words, they failed to provide context that showed Americans the predatory nature of our healthcare system compared to other countries. And that is a prime darn shame. Because Americans are no different than folks around the world. We get sick, we live a certain amount of time, and in fact, we don't live the longest. We pay the most for healthcare, but we don't live the longest. If we were to ask somebody, how do you judge if something is successful? You judge success in the case of healthcare, whether people live, how long they live, and the quality of life that they're living, and also the frustrations that they may have with the healthcare system. All of that is quality of life and whether you can survive in that system. And by all measures, we are last or pretty darn close to last in all the OECD countries, all these industrialized countries. We're last, generally last. And you know, people hear this over and over again, and it almost seems to them, well, that is white noise, that we hear that all of the times. That is, you know, I mean, people get tired of hearing that. People get tired of hearing these same things over and over and over again. However, folks, it is our job not only to tell you just the absolute, but in a context of how this affects you personally. I always to ask people always ask, well, if things are so bad, why do people tolerate it? One of the things about being ill, by being sick, right, is most of us are not sick at the same time. At any given point in life, maybe 5-10% of people are sick and have to interface with the healthcare system. So by the time they get better, or by the time things are different, for a lot of people, you know, they've forgotten the despair, they've forgotten all of that, and they're right back into their standard mode. So healthcare then doesn't, when you're not sick, healthcare somehow doesn't become that overriding factor. But it needs to, because it does have a material effect on our lives. Continuing, Pharma should not be allowed to hold Americans hostage, as they do with their drug pricing schemes to maximize their profits on sickness. It is immoral and should be illegal. The gist of the story is typical. A company, in this case Kaleo, repackaged an old cheap drug that is no longer patented and then inflated its price. They created a talking injector for the opioid overdose drug naloxone named Evzio. They then priced the drug at $575 for 2 doses. As the opioid crisis has gotten more severe, they've inflated the price to $4,000. $4,000. Person on 802, I'm going to be coming to you in a minute. Please stay with me. And after the blog of the week, I'll definitely get you online to talk. But please stay with me. Okay, the gist of the story is typical, or rather, Pharma should not be allowed to hold Americans hostage at all. Look, Leslie Stahl interviewed the Kaleo CEO, Spencer Williamson. As usual, these extortionists always find a plausible way to explain the way they're greed. This portion of the transcript of the interview is telling, and here's how it goes. Leslie Stahl said, just jack the price from $575. Spencer comes back. Leslie comes back to $4,000. Spencer Williams then says, that's the CEO of Kaleo. Leslie, what? She answered. Spencer says, I don't love that word. We raised the price to improve access to the product. In other words, you take the product from $575 to $4,000 so that more people can have access to the product. Are you kidding me? That is the stupidity these drug companies and these other types of capitalists would like to tell folks, lie to them about. And you know what's the worst thing about it? Somebody who listened to that program last night is going to hear, oh, he raised the prices of the drugs so that a lot more people could get access to it. They ask you to believe impossibilities by just saying it. And because it's a CEO who said it, somehow it's real. My God, folks. Anyhow, Leslie Stahl, amazed. What? She says. What? Explain that. Williamson said, yeah, Leslie, that's hard to get your head around. That's what Leslie is telling him. That can't be true. He then responded, the big misperception is that raising the price of Evzio, we reduce the access to the product. The exact opposite is true. More people are getting it at that price, Leslie said. The CEO then gives a dubious story that in effect they socket. Wait, let me back up. He said, Spencer Williams then said, yeah, the numbers don't lie. So less than 5,000 prescriptions were filled in the first 12 months. In the second 12 months, over 65,000 prescriptions were filled. Da. Yeah, because it became a national. It's not that they raised the price; it became a national story. The CEO then gives a dubious story that in effect they sock it to the insurance companies that will pay. He claims Kaleo absorbs the cost for those people who have co-pays or no ability to pay, supposedly giving them the drug for free. It did not pass the smell test, especially since Stahl previously spoke to organizations helping on the streets, stating that even with donations, the price was prohibitive. They must continue using the standard and expensive vial syringe method to deliver the medication. The sad part about the presentation is that Stahl gave the CEO the opportunity to seem benevolent. He offered to lower the price below even the original $575, but he did so putting the onus on others. See? So he put the onus on others. Here's what he said. Spencer Williams said this: "We want to reach out to all middlemen, all insurance companies to say, we will lower the price to less than the original $575 if you will make sure that when a physician decides a patient is at risk, they can get and they can afford it." So you see what he did there? He's saying, okay, we lower the price, but everybody who asks for it has all insurance companies now have to take it, and whenever people ask for the drug, you have to give it to them. Just another marketing buffoonery. All right, so now Lester Stahl said, but all insurance companies have to agree for you to get there? Stahl, have you done it yet? We have started those conversations, he says. Lester Stahl, as a magazine program, lost the opportunity to discuss how this type of extortion and pilfer is impossible in other countries because they have they have either real socialized medicine or some permutation thereof. There are market reasons why healthcare does not belong in the market portion of our economy. Every sensible government has already figured that out. Single-payer Medicare for all is the only solution. I repeat, single-payer Medicare is the only solution that makes sense and is the only mathematical solution to bring down cost. I wrote a piece titled "Free Market in Healthcare Kills American," and this is no hyperbole. That's worth a read. It said the following: Republicans and corporate Democrats lie to us about getting better and lower cost healthcare under the free market. This is false, and all evidence reality show otherwise. Do not buy into the hype. America's healthcare is currently a free market healthcare with mostly tepid government regulations. As Ali Velshi pointed out several times on MSNBC, no industrialized country in the world practices what we practice, market-based healthcare. And the reason is simple. Corporations have the fiduciary responsibility to maximize profits, not to heal the sick. If healing is a byproduct, that is a good thing. But make no mistake, shareholders invest where they can make money passively. Let me close the blog of the week now by saying the following. Let me repeat the last paragraph on the blog of the week because I need to make sure that we get this tied into the show. Now, in certain areas, that does not matter because people have choices. When it comes to healthcare, Americans have no choice. They cannot choose when to get sick. When sickness hits, they cannot shop around for the best price. And unlike the lies for most Republicans, Americans never had the freedom to pick their doctor outright, especially with HMOs and PPOs, controlling who fall within their plan. It is a fallacy that the patients ever had freedom. They have always had choices, no choices. It is clear that the mainstream media does not have the wherewithal to force the issue, even as they have their mega platform to do so. It is on us to educate ourselves, our friends, and our families. Folks, the telephone number is 646-716-5812, and I'm coming to, let's see, 802, you are going to be hot right now. 802, how can I be of assistance to you, my friend?
Yes, hello, sir.
Yes, you're here.
Well, I had a comment about the healthcare being free market.
Yes, sir.
Simple fact is that it's not free market.
Mm-hmm.
And I apologize. I only have about 5 minutes to talk, so I'll be brief.
Sure, go ahead.
But basically, the question is, why didn't anybody compete? If somebody jacks up the price to $4,000, that's a good opportunity for somebody else, even myself or you or anybody else that he has even the slightest inclination to be entrepreneurial, to start up a business and to sell this product and undercut him.
Okay.
Even if it's only by $5, you'll make him kill it. You know, so the reason why they couldn't do that is because there was because of intellectual property, because of copyright, because of patents, which is a problem caused by the government. The government siding with businesses to give them an exclusive monopoly to produce goods. So the solution there would clearly be to remove patents, to remove copyright, to remove intellectual property, to bring more freedom to people to be able to compete in a more free market with these big businesses.
Okay.
Somebody can only screw over their customer for so long before somebody else comes along and competes. You know? What are your thoughts on that?
Let me qualify a few things and make a few comments, and I hope you can stay with me for the 5 minutes or so that you said there, because this is what you brought up is very important, and not only what you said is true. I wrote a book called "As I See It: Class Warfare: The Only Resort to Right-Wing Doom." That's that book right there. And the reason that I wrote that book, I include a section on patent, and the section on patent covered how bad it was and how it stops people from doing exactly what you just said. But when it comes to healthcare, it is deeper than that, right? In other words, what you just said is perfect. If I was building a car and I made the car too expensive, I just go ahead and somebody will compete with me and make a car that's better and cheaper, and more people will then buy the car. It'll force me to drop the price. When you have cancer and somebody creates a drug for that cancer, and they decide that they're going to monopolize on that drug, and it takes time for some other company to come in and make that same drug. So, or under the capitalist system, meaning the market system for healthcare, I am not anti-market in different fields, but I'm just anti-market when it comes to healthcare. It means that you are saying within your economic system, you're willing to have people die so that the system can catch up to reality. In other words, so that the system can catch up to the immorality of that person who makes that drug at a very high price. You're saying you're willing to have people die. I am saying that we don't have to have that immorality within our system in the beginning. If we simply say healthcare does not belong in the market, why should we have healthcare in the market? First of all, the viability of drugs and the viability of new technologies never originate generally in the private sector. It starts as a government grant who determines viability, and after viability is determined, somehow it gets turned over into the private sector, because private companies, because their fiduciary responsibility is to their shareholders, their fiduciary responsibility is never, ever, ever to the health care of people. Never, ever to take chances that they cannot, that they don't know there's a good chance that they will reap a reward. So what you're saying is absolutely true outside of healthcare. Within healthcare, it is immoral. And why is it immoral? Because you're saying you're asking the economic system to catch up with healthcare. In other words, the economic system, after somebody decides to be immoral, then somebody else comes in and say, okay, I'm going to do the right thing to drop the price. And then now those people who were lucky enough to only get sick after that fighting of pricing come through, will they live? Otherwise, they die. And your response, sir?
My response would be just as a meta point. You look at different markets that have evolved and had the most innovation in the last 10, 20, 30 years, is largely Silicon Valley and electronics, which did not come out of the government sector. Certainly the internet was originally a government program, but you know that the cell phone that I'm talking to you on today was not created by government. It was not.
Yes, it is.
It wasn't created by communism or socialism.
Look, my dear friend, here's the thing. And that is what I wish I don't want to be anti-free market, because I believe in the free market. I am a software developer. I had my own software company. I believe in all of that. What I don't believe is
great. I would just say that you're not being consistent about it. You're not consistently applying those free market principles.
In what regard, sir?
In healthcare, by your own statements.
No. Said. No, you're right. But let me tell you what I don't. First of all, being inconsistent in healthcare, you're right about what you're absolutely right. But what I want folks to understand with healthcare is, like I said, the reason why healthcare doesn't belong in the free market is because we're asking the economic system to catch up to healthcare. In other words, if somebody comes out with a product that heals and make people live, and that price is unaffordable, The market says it takes time for somebody else to come in and compete. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And if
It does
that
take
person
time.
comes in to compete to correct that price, then it means that we are willing to say we leave the healthcare of we put the lives of people into the or rather dependent on an a man-made economic system. And what I'm saying is that purity is unnecessary. If we have a cure developed for something, and pricing prevents using that cure to save, and the only reason we can't save is because of our economic model, then our economic model is flawed in healthcare. That's all I'm saying. Do you follow?
Yeah, I follow. I would just make a point about morality. You brought up morality
Yes,
earlier,
sir.
and hopefully we have long enough to
Sure.
finish this discussion.
Sure.
The healthcare already exists in the free market.
Yes.
In the free market, period, to start.
Yes.
And it would be people who are advocating for more government regulation, for it to be socialized, that are doing something immoral by advocating for the government to use force or threats thereof against companies, against individuals. For example, with patents, the FDA and such, and regulations, and that is immoral.
Sir, we are on the same. We could go to
fundamental.
fight together on that. We could definitely, you and I, one click. I was unable to develop an application because Amazon patented one click. I'm a software developer and was developing an app, found out that one click was patented and couldn't do anything about it then. So you're right. I mean, there's so much that we have in common, right, as far as the things that we believe in. However, I think the part where we will depart is the purity of wanting free markets everywhere. And I think I want free markets in certain places, and there are certain places I think free market turned out to be a bit immoral. So, I mean, there's a lot we can agree on, but I think I think in healthcare, we have to admit that if we have to wait for the market to catch up to lower the price, we're saying that we're willing to have X number of debts, even though we have a solution to stop those debts.
Yes, I hear you. There's certainly some medical procedures that are extremely expensive. And say, just for example, say my wife has some obscure cancer, and I haven't saved enough money for the treatment,
Right.
and my insurance company won't cover it. Would I be justified in going and robbing a bank or robbing a small business to get the money to pay for that treatment?
No, you would not.
Can I do something immoral to get the funds to save a life?
No, but
And I would say,
No.
like you just said, no.
no. But I have an answer.
And likewise, to use force against companies, to use force against individuals through government, to socialize healthcare is using force, doing something immoral, even if it is to save a life, to get the funds to save someone.
And I think, sir, that is where that's where we part, right? Because we define a societal framework. We define a societal framework, and then we live within that framework. In other words, what you're calling theft out, stealing out of what's in the free into the capitalist system right now, I'm saying what we do is we change norms. I'm a black person, and I'm going to say something that is maybe get me in trouble. What happened when in the South, when slavery was abolished? What happened? I'm not talking about after the war. I'm talking about a whole lot of places where slavery was when they said slavery was abolished. What happened? They compensated.
Sorry, are you Jim Crow?
No. Before that, they compensated. This is crazy that I'm using this example, but in Haiti, when Toussaint Louverture had the revolution and took over, the people who were previously slaves owed France money for their freedom. Okay, and that is following your mode. That is following your modal, right? Because your modal is you're stealing from what was already there in the free society. I'm saying, okay, we have that model already. I disagree with it. I mean, in America, when slavery was abolished in certain states, the owners of slaves, when their slaves were freed, were actually paid by the government X number of dollars for each one of their property, their slaves. So there are remedial efforts we could do in a capitalist system to change the model for those that are already within the free market domain to rein it in outside of the free market domain. So I would then take that argument away from you where you say, well, that is like robbing something that's there. I can say, okay, good. What we'll do is we'll go ahead and take it out of the free market by purchasing it out. But here's the funny thing about it. When all these drugs were developed, they started in colleges, universities, paid for by all of our tax dollars. And when they were marketed and when they were turned over to private companies and marketed, unfortunately, the tax holders never got back any of that investment. So, I mean, it's not a fair game, and it's not a fair game because of how lobbyists have worked, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I think it's important for us to look at it holistically and not just from, okay, now it's, we're somehow robbing to help. I think we can sit down and talk about how we get certain parts of our economy socialized and certain parts remain inside of the market-based economy. I think we need to have the hybrid if we really want to have a society that works.
Right. Now, that's a belief of many people. I'll openly admit I'm a libertarian. I'm an anarcho-capitalist.
Right.
Which is a rather obscure.
I know about it.
Obscure political position.
Yeah.
Great. Fantastic. So I like to talk about fundamentals, about to argue from principles.
Right.
But I got to let you go in a second, so I'll just end with this. Although I don't think it's particularly convincing, I'll leave with an argument from effect, which is that the FDA, by putting more regulations on the healthcare industry, creates a higher barrier to entry, where more research has to be put in for clinical trials. It prevents drugs from being produced that have the chance to save people. And I think it's the FDA has been around 60 or 70 years, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And that countless drugs have been declined approval by the FDA, to making it illegal to sell them in the United States, that are legal in other countries,
mm-hmm.
which do provide some benefits to people. But not only that, we can't just look at what's seen. We have to look at what is unseen,
mm-hmm.
and imagine all of the drugs that didn't even come to market in the first place that
mm-hmm.
could have saved people.
Right.
And over 60 or 70 years, there's millions and millions of lives that could have been saved that now haven't been.
I think you're
thanks
right.
to the FDA.
Look, I think you have to go, but I want to thank you first of all for having a discussion with the tonality that you have, because I think if we started to have these discussions in this way, we can actually come to, I mean, we're not all going to agree with you, but we'll come to a place where we can all sit down and agree. So, I mean, not necessarily sit down and agree, but sit down and have a real conversation on the particular issues at hand. So thank you so kindly for calling, my friend. That was a conservative, libertarian, that came onto the show, and I want to thank him for coming on. Folks, the telephone number is 646-716-5812. For some reason, we had a little technical difficulties where we lost a few. We lost the feed. For some reason, I haven't got a clue why that happened. But again, that number is 646-716-5812. Please feel free to give us a call to discuss this further. But anyhow, folks, healthcare, look, we have to stop believing what we hear about somehow the magical free market, the magical capitalist market can solve our problems, okay? Here's the reality. It cannot. It cannot. It doesn't have a brain. It just works on if I can make some money. That is what capitalism is, right? It is simply about capitalizing on everything and seeing whether I can make money or not. Now, in some areas, I don't have a problem with that because I really don't care. You don't have to buy a car. You don't have to buy certain things. So if you want to create a free-for-all gambling capitalist market, be my guest. But when it comes to people getting sick, when it comes to people getting hurt, at that point, it's serious. At that point, we're talking life or death. So, I mean, at that point, we really have to start thinking about what make things work. What I'm going to do right now is see if I can go to talk to my folks on Facebook Live now, because I know that many of you have been there and probably going to be on several feeds because, again, we lost the feed earlier on. But let me get there and get to you. Bear with me as I pull that up, because I really want this subject taken care of, because a lot of people don't understand how important it is. And not only that, but how misleading much of what you hear on TV and elsewhere is. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to go to see what our people are saying. And I'm pulling it up as we speak. Folks, if you're just joining us, please remember to go to share this on your Facebook page, on your wall, everywhere else. Okay. Michael Rudnin says, it wasn't my that crashed. No, it was our system that crashed. Shortening durations of patents is a good idea. Yes, it is. But what they do with the shortening of the patents a lot of times, Mr. Rudnin, is they'll shorten the patent, and then the company will come around and they'll add one ingredient to the solution, and then they'll get a new patent on that, claiming that ingredient makes it substantially different. And then they'll go around, their salespeople will go around to doctors' offices and convince them how much better that new drug is. That's what they do, right? The classical example I've always given is Claritin. When Claritin came out of, when Claritin went to generic, meaning it lost its patent rights after 18 years or 17 years or whatever that is, they created a new product called Clarinex. When they created Clarinex, what did Clarinex do? Pretty darn much the same thing, just added a little ingredient in there and got a new patent on it. Is that what this is all about? Yeah. Okay. Rene Perpetua, healthcare should have no profit motive. I agree, but I think it's also deeper, my friend Rene. I think my daughter is in med school right now. By the time she gets out, I paid for her full undergrad. But by the time she gets out of med school, she's still going to be probably $500,000 in debt. Okay? I think that's ridiculous. That makes absolutely no sense. And that's why when she works at a practice or whatever, she'll have to make enough money so that she can live and at the same time pay off that ridiculous debt. Makes no sense, right? Michael Rudnin, patents are government regulations. That whole force complaint is errant. Okay, we already have a hybrid, heavily regulated and dictated healthcare sector, and it is causing our out-of-control inflation. We just again lost that signal. I don't know how comes. This is the second time this has happened, and I am not sure exactly why it has happened, but we'll go ahead and see what's going on here. This is the second time that we're losing that signal. Okay, it looks like it's back. All right, it looks like it's back. Anyhow, folks, I just don't get it. I just don't get it. Why? I'd like Mr. CSEC to tell me exactly the mechanism where you can show that it's government interference that is causing healthcare costs to go up. You see, it's always a good thing to make the government the boogeyman. My question is, okay, you want to do that? Tell me exactly specifically how the government has caused the prices to go up. Okay, let me go. Rene Perpetua says Martin Shkreli wasn't regulated. The CEO charging $4,000 for naloxone is not regulated. That is correct. You're absolutely correct. There's nothing stopping him from charging $4,000. He just decided to do it. Marian Castiglia, isn't that what happened with this drug, that they came out in a new name? Yeah, actually, it's even worse than that, Marianne. It's the same drug, naloxone or whatever it's called. They just repackaged it. Normally, people have a vial with the drug, they put it into a syringe, and they inject it. Well, they created a form that instead of injecting it, they spray it into the nose. That one costs $100 and something for a couple of doses. And then there comes this company that creates another packaging that talks to you. So it says, okay, rest it on your leg. Are you resting it on your leg? Now push the button, hold, wait till we do it. That's what it does. It's just a talking device that costs less than $80, much less actually. But because it talks, it's a repackaging, but it's easier. It really is easier to use. But $4,000? Come on now. That's more than several computers. Think about it. More than several computers is what they're asking you to pay for this device. Marianne says, I thought it was my at my end. The crash, it didn't last long though. No, it was a short one. I am not sure what this is. This has to do something with signaling, and so I'm not sure what happened there. Let me go ahead and do a refresh to see what else people are saying here. Bear with me 1 second. Let's see. René Perpetua, the price of higher education makes no sense. This must be changed. Absolutely so. Like I said before, my daughter's in med school, and when she gets out, she's going to owe so much money. It's pathetic. And the thing about it is, then when the doctors, I spoke to a doc. I sat down at Starbucks and spoke to a doctor, and he was complaining about different issues. And I said, Doctor, I'm going to tell you one issue, however. I wish more doctors would stand together and form coalitions. And he said, didn't you know that doctors are prohibited from forming unions? I didn't research it. I just took it at face value, but I didn't know that. He said doctors cannot form unions. So I got to research that to see about that. But if that's the case, no wonder things are the way they are. Okay, René Perpetua says it's like an EpiPen. Yeah, the EpiPen. And you know what's so funny about it? This is when we talk about Democrats and Republicans, it makes no difference. The CEO of the company who has that EpiPen at that crazy price is actually the daughter of the West Virginia senator. What's his name? Munchin or whatever his name is. It's a shame. And you wonder why is it that Nancy Pelosi does not want, or Chuck Schumer do not want to bring up Medicare for all. And the reason why is they're all beholden to these big lobbies that give them a whole lot of money. So what they want to do is keep the door open for this pilfer. And this is why we have to inform all our people. We have to inform everybody of what's happening here. We have to let them know what they're trying to do to us. And the way we do that is by informing you with these programs. Okay, I think Mike Cisak is coming back with an answer. Egberta, for example, patents cause a monopoly for a time by the government, which then allows the company to charge as much as the market will bear. The same goes for health insurance. The fewer insurance companies there are, the higher such companies can charge. Okay, let me take that one at a time. First of all, my dear friend Michael Cisak, you're absolutely right about what patents do. Patents create a monopoly. The theory behind the patent is that, companies will not go and try to develop these complicated things if there weren't patents that protect somebody after they've gone through the research to simply go ahead and copy the stuff, right? That's their theory. I believe otherwise. I believe you invent something. If somebody wants to copy it, if you're the original inventor, more of the people are going to want to buy it from you, etc., etc. If you go ahead and reduce the price because you didn't have the research and development that was necessary, there is something short of patenting that we can come up with to solve that problem. Probably something called truthful accounting. In other words, if a company really goes ahead and account for exactly how much it costs to develop that product, and somebody else goes ahead and tries to copy it, maybe there is some way that they can have some sort of a profit sharing based on that reality. Okay? Right now they do it through licensing, but licensing means the monopoly holder can say no. We're talking about not being able to say no. So maybe there's some solution to that. So CSAC, I'm partially agreeing with you that the patent system is screwed up. I've written about that in my book, As I See It, and I always like to advertise that As I See It, class warfare, the only resort to right-wing doom. I went through that. You are absolutely right on that, but there are ways to mitigate that, but that is not the sole purpose of our crazy healthcare issue, because as we just showed you what that CEO did, real options and no real reasons for having insurance companies, none whatsoever. And when we get that in our heads, that there's no reasons for insurance companies, I think things will get better. Okay, René Perpetu, Manchin, that's right, Manchin, René, thank you for that. The EpiPen was 100 and was increased to 600. That was a shame. Okay, let's see. Jean Richardson, welcome aboard. Marianne Castiglia, Rutrow, crashed again. It came back though, Marianne Castiglia. All right, let's see. Okay, coming back to our folks here. Let's see if we have any more issues here. Mike Cisak says, the other problem with our healthcare system is that so few ever buy directly like we do food. We let insurance or government control the vine. So I guess you agree with me. Get rid of insurance companies directly. Wow. We may have some common ground here. Anyway, folks, we're close to the end of the program. So what I have to do is do what I always do close to the end and sometimes through the middle of the program, is tell you that this is a program that needs your support. Please support Progressive Radio by going to patreon.com/politics done right. That is patreon.com/politics done right. We really need your support to stay afloat. We really need your support to stay alive. Absent your support, we simply cannot do it. Absent your support, folks, it is just not possible for us to continue with these types of programming. So what we ask is that you join. We ask you that you join the program, that you join us, that you join being a subscriber to Politics Done Right.
Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Williams. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Williams. Let us engage. It is politics done right.
1, 2, 3, 4.